Oh boy. Here we have an episode simply called Clues. An episode that is infamous because of the fact that, for in universe reasons, the events of this episode will never be mentioned ever again. Probably. Because, well, Michael Piller thought this was one of his best works. I personally, seeing this on TV, thought the ending was a dumb cop out, and that the crew of the Enterprise would have been better off just running away from the Paxans and then telling Starfleet about it and making it a quarantine world, much like so many others that have hostile aliens on them. Because in the grand scheme of things, these are aliens that are kind of hostile. They really are. They want to be left in peace, but they'll kill anyone who intrudes on their peace. Yeah. So let's get in with that. The basic gist of it is that the Enterprise has found a planet that is previously unknown in terms of being habitable. And when they tried scanning the planet, they get disparate readings several times, and it's unclear exactly why that happened at first. Well, see, here's the thing. Some of the readings are from a different day. He's like, there is actually like a whole bunch of like slice of life stuff here at the beginning. It's like the opening scene is just them doing a normal day, and they happen to notice that there's a T-Tari star near Ngami Nebula. Now, one thing that's a fun thing here is that T-Tari variable stars are something that is a real thing from real world astronomy. So, and this is actually one of those things where the way they used it is actually reasonably correct. It's like they're believed to be relatively young stars that haven't actually finished settling into their final form, so they can kind of flicker and flash because they're in the process of stabilizing after initial formation. But that's the theory, anyways. There's a rather long Wikipedia article about it if you really want to get into details. Anyway, so in Star Trek, one of the things about T-Tauri stars that makes them noteworthy is that due to this natural instability of the star, it also has a habit of creating wormholes, although said wormholes are often just really short-range things that only lead out of the solar system. And supposedly the crew runs into one of those. Nah. See, the Paxtons are who lives here. Now, one thing that's not clear about this episode and is an unsolved mystery in universe, something that the Federation does not know, does not find out during the course of this episode, and is something that your players might want to try to investigate if you were to use this. Why are the Paxans so xenophobic? This is not like regular xenophobia where we don't like outsiders. No, no. These are a race that has decided that they have no interest in talking to anyone ever. It's such a visceral terror that it feels as though it was caused by an event in the past. And the Paxans feel so strongly that they're willing to destroy the Enterprise in order to keep their existence a secret. They want their world to be known on the galactic stage as an uninhabited, useless ball of rock in a solar system no one wants to visit, so that everyone will leave their homeworld alone. Yeah, that's one of those things where you just like immediately wonder why, how. This is, unusual behavior for a race of this level of technology and influence. Well, I guess influence isn't the right word for it. Maybe affluence. Whatever. Anyway, so the basic gist of it here is that the Paxans have a trick called biochemical stasis, which causes people to temporarily be more or less incapacitated, but also don't show signs of aging and stuff like normally. Now, one of the things that Crusher used to figure out that the whole thing was a scam was how her how that biochemical stasis doesn't work on Diomedian scarlet moss, and that Crusher was cultivating it for a specific purpose and thus monitoring its growth very methodically. And it grows a full day's worth in what is supposedly only 30 seconds. No. Nope, nope, nope. Also, the biochemical stasis does not actually prevent your biochemistry from doing stuff. It does slightly change while you're in biochemical stasis, and Crusher was able to detect that, but most members of the crew, she didn't have recent enough sensor recordings in order to get a valid comparison. She did manage to figure that out, though, and verify that, yes, people had been doing things to the crew against their wishes. Which, hey, as for what Diomedean Scarlet Moss is, where it came from, what the planet's like, good question. That wasn't the important part. Oh yeah, also Ingame Nebula. Ingame, whatever. Anyway, there's really not much interest or not much information about this. It's just the closest whatever astrophysical object to the star that the Paxan homeworld orbits. All we know about it. Not even a particularly interesting looking nebula by Star Trek standards, anyways. And the Paxan homeworld itself. Now, the homeworld is in fact a Class M world. That's about all we know about it. Now, when Commander Data was messing with the Enterprise's sensor data to hide the existence of the Paxans, he faked it to make the Paxan homeworld look like Tethys 3, which is the reason why, when you look here, you see this green orb, because this is actually a picture of Tethys 3. This is not a picture of the Paxan homeworld, because this is what the Paxan homeworld actually looks like. Now, this is one of those things you think is like, why would you do that? Because of the fact that this kind of planet is something that the Federation has very little reason to actually pay close attention to. It's one of those things that's, I guess, common enough that it's not considered interesting and um, unuseful enough that people aren't going to be like, oh, hey, you found one of those things. Great. We'll be over there in a few days to mine it for minerals. No. Hydrogen, helium. Hmm. No noteworthy minerals. Meh. Now, obviously, the whole thing is a lie because a Class M world and a gas giant are not even close to the same thing in terms of astrometric readings. However, this was part of Data's deception, trying to help the Paxans by concealing the existence of their civilization from Starfleet. One thing that's noteworthy in this episode is I don't remember what the logic that um, Data actually came up with for why the Paxans' wishes were being respected. Why didn't Data just, leave the Paxans' area of influence and just tell everyone the truth? Why is he willing to play along with their wishes? Now that is a question that you could have your party ponder at length. It's because, the Paxans are not an aggressive race. They're a hostile race, but not an aggressive hostile race. They are very passive. As long as you stay outside their sphere of influence, they don't care what you do. And also noteworthy here is that apparently it was in fact Picard's decision in the first iteration of the Paxan encounter, which kind of makes sense because Picard is the kind of person who's diplomatically skeevy enough that he is willing to do underhanded diplomacy in the interests of avoiding physical confrontation. But again, if you just leave the Paxan system, you don't need to worry about whether the Paxans are mad at you. Although it's not actually explained what the limit of their ability actually is, because that's something that gets left incredibly vague. One of the Paxans uses Deanna Troy as a method of communicating with the crew of the Enterprise. This green haze around Deanna Troy's face while the Paxan is controlling her is literally the only thing we ever see that looks like it even might be a Paxan. This energy field here is apparently not actually the Paxans themselves. This is the energy bubble that they created to imitate a wormhole and act as their trap for intruders. Anyone who investigates the wormhole gets put into biochemical stasis and relocated outside the system and hopefully won't come back. Hopefully. Now, this is an interesting question because how many times have the Paxans actually used this plan successfully? How many times have they been forced to destroy intruders to keep their location secret? And more interestingly, is it actually true that no one knows about the Paxans? Because that's the part about this episode that really, really got me thinking. Because who are the Paxans so afraid of? Why are the Paxans so violently isolationist that they would destroy the starship the size of the Enterprise just to hide their own existence from the Federation? Because let's face it, if the Enterprise was destroyed, the Federation would possibly send another ship to investigate. And what are the Paxons going to do to hide themselves from that ship? Yeah, again, this is part of why the Paxons' plan A was to trick people into leaving them alone. But at the same time, the Paxons' methods don't actually seem to be all that good because you know if the intruders decide to beam down to the planet before investigating the fake wormhole, what are the Paxons going to do about that? Probably something, because one thing we have learned about this civilization is that they do have powerful technology with a list of things that they can get done. How exactly, all of this stuff is meant to be handled, don't know. Just that it is. And that's a very interesting question because, again, it's like we know the episode as aired has so little time devoted to actually talking about what the Paxons really are that Almost all of it is in Act 5. Almost all of it. Like 3/4 of the episode, they're not directly talking about the Paxans. So, what exactly is going on here, we have very little information about. And that's something you could have a lot of fun with in TTRPG. Like, what exactly are the Paxans doing? How does biochemical stasis even work? And what's their plan B if their energy field gambit fails? And of course, there's the big question: why the heck are the Paxans even bothering with all of this crap? Why not engage in interstellar trade like most other races do? Hmm. So many questions you could ask about this one. In fact, this episode literally ends with no answers of any kind. Just all you know as a viewer is that the Paxans exist. In universe, it's questionable whether or not the deception even worked the second time. Uh, Data and the ship obviously leave safely. However, comma, while this was never mentioned again, it's not actually clear that no one managed to figure out that it happened because the whole thing of messing with the ship's internal chronometer would create an anomaly when you are looking at a Federation chronometer starbase site. Now, one could have this get ascribed to the whole like wormhole thing, pushing you forward about a day or two in time, I suppose. They could just write it off as that, which, given that it's data making up excuses in this case, that would actually work. Anyway, though, again, one of those things that, due to the nature of the methodology by which the Paxans concealed their existence, it leaves them wide open to have someone else come along and, oops, hey, it's first contact for the third time. Yeh, 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 yeh. Boy, so much we don't know about them. Are they a corporeal race? We don't know, because like this whole thing here, the whole like energy aura around Troy, this could actually be a Paxan entity. That the green cloud could actually be the physical body of a Paxan, or it might not. And if they are actually an energy based race, that might actually explain why they're so xenophobic. Is that they don't want to deal with humanoids because humanoids are very, very strange to them, and their nature just doesn't work nicely with humanoids. But we don't actually know, and that's something that you could play with and have fun with if you actually use them in a TTRPG. And I think that's about it here. It's like the nuts and bolts of this episode have a whole lot of things. Is like the various members of the crew trying to understand what happened to them while they are being um, affected by the Paxans' scheme. And that's the majority of the episode. Figuring out that the Paxans messed with them. That's it. Now, one thing about this one, though, is that because of the fact that this episode has so much internal drama, you end up expanding like stuff on the crew. Like you have Nurse Ogawa, Ensign Kellogg, Ensign McKnight, and several other people who you wouldn't normally have doing anything because of the fact that you have an alien of the week you're talking to instead of a member of the Enterprise's crew. That was kind of interesting. Did a lot to make the crew of the Enterprise more interesting. And McKnight is someone who shows up in several episodes. This was only the first one. She shows up in three more, I guess. Still, though, pretty cool. Oh, and apparently one of her scenes was actually a stock footage scene. Whatever. Who cares? Mm, 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 mm. Anyway. Oh wait, hold it. Wait a second. Photo double Linda Robertson was actually the actress in Redemption. Oh, still don't care. Anyway, yeah, like narratively, it doesn't matter which actress is playing the character. But yeah, it's like this is one of those episodes that has very, very strange story beats to it because of the fact that it's a mystery box episode. One could call the Paxson thing a negative space wedgie, but realistically, it's an example of improbable technology. It's like it's not magical explicitly, it's implied to be tech that the Federation actually understands. They just don't want to use stuff on that scale, and that what the Texans have built is actually a setup that is reasonably powerful. Another, but like the story of the past of the Paxans, why the Paxans act so violently xenophobic. Now that is the big mystery of this episode. And the whole pondering of that is probably what most parties are going to end up doing. Because like, who are these guys? Why are they acting like this? Are just natural questions. And something that your party would quite likely ask at some point in the adventure, even if it's not necessarily the main thing that they discuss. And that is pretty cool. And I think I'll leave it there. Very interesting episode in terms of story development. It's just having an in-universe method to retcon the episode out of existence is kind of weird, and I don't think it actually worked. At least that's how I would take it. Is that Starfleet actually does go back there at some point? Because again, it's like the explanation that they gave for why the planet is off limits is flimsy and crap, and something that someone is probably going to go there just to verify that it's actually as dangerous as the star chart says it is at some point. And yeah, see you guys next time.